The only way to overcome the deeply held fear inside of you is to confront it completely. Fear is something that plagues us all at some stage of our life. It stops us from learning new things. It stops us from achieving our goals. Fear, you may have heard the acronym before. False evidence appearing real. It makes sense, right? It's kind of like something that we build up in our head. I need to fear this, I need to fear that. That fear, you tell yourself, it is protecting you. However, in some circumstances, it's probably making your life harder than it needs to be. I used to have a great fear of speaking in general, in socializing. Isn't that what social anxiety is? And now that I've overcome that, I can't help but think that, what was all of that fuss about? It's only when you overcome something that you are able to then look back on it and then you realize just how bizarre it was. It's almost like you are a completely different person now. I am glad that I no longer hold on to that previously held fear that used to plague me. It did. There is an element of growth that has to happen in order for you to overcome what it is that is causing you suffering. Now, fear, right? It was only 4 to 5 years ago where each and every one of us had a personal relationship with fear. There was multi-million-dollar media campaigns that were designed very, very strategically to ensure that you were feeling the emotion of fear in a very, very big way. These fear campaigns, they were so good that they made most people forget about how blackmail works. Now, you might be thinking, why was it necessary for them to scare the hell out of everyone? Well, it was necessary because in order to convince someone to do something that they otherwise would not want to do, in order to finally break through that barrier, enough fear and those people will throw everything out the window, and just out of being scared, they will just go along with whatever is presented to them as the solution. And the higher ups, they know this stuff. They have got it down to a complete science. And in 2020, 2021, we saw that complete science come into full effect. And it worked. Now, I was actually quite lucky, right? During that time, I actually saw what was going on from pretty much day one. And I don't say that to brag, I say that as something like wow, I can't believe I was able to do that, right? I was telling people, I think that this is a psyop. And if you don't know what a psyop is, it is short for psychological operation. And it was. If you can't see it even 4 or 5 years after, then you probably won't ever see it. Yeah. And at the time, no one believed me. No one. Not even people who are into conspiracies actually believed me when I told them, I think it's a psyop. And I said to them, I think that the end game is going to be a mandatory vaccine. Yeah. I was saying this in March 2020 when it happened. At the time, I was really, I don't know, I just started to wake up at the right time, and it showed. I tried to tell people, however, I had a friend, right, who I told about this stuff. I was very vocal, very vocal. I was trying to help him to wake up, right? And he thought it was all fun and games, right? Everything that I was saying, he's just crazy. He's just crazy. He was entertaining it because he found it amusing. And was pretty much laughing at me, pretty much. I mean, fair enough. However, I was coming from a place of trying to help him. And the funny thing, to me was, in his mind, it was all fun and games until later down the track, when all of that stuff that I was saying that he dismissed, all of that stuff started happening, started to come true. And when that happened, instead of reaching out to me and be like, oh man, how did you know? Instead of saying that, he just cut me off. Yeah. It's funny how people work like that. It was only once I was proven right, and then he cut me off. He didn't cut me off when I was, talking smack. No. It was funny at that point, right? And I made a decision that I don't care what happens to me. I don't care what they do to me. I am not taking the shot. I made that decision. And I was more than prepared to live with the consequences of that. At the time, it was a big call. It was a big call because, my life was, it could have went down the absolute shitter. However, I made that decision, and I look back on that, and I feel like that was a major shift in my life. And I sometimes look at that day that I make that decision, and I was like, I think that was the day that I finally became a man. Because I made an extremely difficult decision, and I was more than happy to suffer the consequences of that. There was just something in my spirit that was telling me I cannot take this shot. Just blank. I just cannot do it. In my mind, I thought that I was going to be one of those stories that you take it, and then it has a side effect that no one knew about, and next thing you know, I'm no more. So, however, fear, right? I was pretty proud that I was able to withstand all of that fear that was pushed. I don't think people realize just how heavy in terms of the media campaigns were during COVID. I don't think people appreciate how much effort they put into scaring the hell out of everyone and trying to convince them to take an experimental injection. Pretty much against their will. I mean, like, some people, like, they went in freely, right? However, a great majority of people only did it because they knew that they would have lost their job. They would have it would have complicated their life to such a serious extent that they just couldn't bear to witness, like, the consequences of it. Yeah, it was a dark time. It was a dark time for me. I must admit, but I'm very glad that I stuck to my guns, right? Because if I hadn't, and it turned out to be the right call. It turned out to be the right call. It did, because everything just went back to normal. Just whoops. As soon as everyone got their shot, okay, it didn't exist anymore. So. Yeah. But hey, at this point, like, I'm kind of preaching to the choir, aren't I? But yeah, don't underestimate how much of an effect fear has on you. It had such a strong grip on people that any type of critical thinking that they had, it just went out the bloody window. It kind of bypasses all types of reasoning and intellect, and just goes straight through it, and causes people to make irrational decisions. So I think the reason that I was able to withstand all of that fear was because I made a decision that I was going to confront it. I made a decision that I wasn't going to run away anymore, because I could see that everyone was basically just falling into line. And I suppose it helps to be able to see through things. It does help. But quite a lot of very smart people got tricked and got duped in 2020, 2021. And it's only now, after they look back on it all, that they finally admit to themselves, like, oh shit, I can't believe I fell for that. But hey, you are certainly not alone, because I'd say a great majority of the population fell for it, big time. And I reckon most people who got vaccinated, I reckon now, if only they found out what was actually in it, right? I reckon most of them would probably regret it at this point in time. However, it just goes to show, ignorance, it's not always bliss. Ignorance may well cost you your life one day. But yeah, it was a dark time, that's for sure. But I hope a lot of people learnt the lesson that was on offer during that period, because it just seemed like a final last ditch attempt to try to to try to dumb everyone down before things really start to shift. I think that people are in the process of waking up, and I can't help but think that that whole thing was a ploy to try to delay the process. And it probably worked in terms of most people. However, I'd say most that were able to see the suspicions at the time. I think most of those people now are a lot more awake than they previously were. So it was kind of a catch-22, because it kind of dumped people down, but in the same way, it also woke a lot of people up, because they were so blatant and obvious about what they were doing. It just wasn't even funny anymore. However, yeah, I hope it teaches people that hey, you are allowed to do some critical thinking. You don't have to just trust what the government says, or what he says, or what she says, experts says. At the end of the day, you do not know who is bought and paid for. And I'd probably say that anyone that is given any type of platform in media or government, like spokespeople, I'd say that most of them are bought and paid for in some extent, in some regard. So yeah, it's hard to know who to trust, but yeah, perhaps, I mean, like the only reason that I was able to get through all of that without falling for it is because I trusted my gut instinct. I felt a deep hit in my stomach that was telling me, don't go down that path. I don't know what would have happened, but I probably wouldn't be here making semen retention videos, because if you know about semen retention and if you're taking it seriously, then you are definitely waking up in terms of like the grand scheme of things. So in that regard, I have to be grateful for that.